Part 122. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1215. Fortunately, the soul power of the Holy Phoenix Grimoire is extremely short and overbearing, otherwise it would be really dangerous. This time Garen watched as the soul seed of the Holy Phoenix Grimoire gradually dissipated its extremely short and overbearing nature. Feeling in my heart. The sudden change caught him off guard and made him sober up after he thought he was invincible in this world. The void creatures are still staring at me. I should have thought that void stalkers and void creatures are attracted to each other like magnets. Due to the oath, I have to kill the void creatures with a sword, and the void creatures obviously have similar constraints. Means. But where does the power of sin come from? Garen thought of the inexplicable fluctuation just now, and there was a hint of speculation in his heart. Huge amounts of soul power continue to pour out of the mind reader's body and penetrate into his own body, making up for the damage caused by the black dog's bite just now. At the same time, the Holy Phoenix magic book continued to recover from its previous injuries. Bang bang bang. There were faint gunshots coming from outside, and the entire secret room shook slightly. Garen opened his eyes. Is this a bomb? A bomb was actually used at the Vulture headquarters. Who dares to break into his base? The golden energy of the Holy Phoenix Grimoire quickly made up for Garen's torn soul seed and soul, and then the remaining little energy was integrated into the entire soul ring. At this point, the golden energy of the entire Holy Phoenix Grimoire was completely dissipated. If it hadn't been for the outbreak of the Holy Phoenix, I might have had to temporarily disconnect the soul ring, but I'm fine now. The black sun pattern on Garen's chest was completely solidified, while the black pattern on the mind reader's chest slowly disappeared. Bang! The mind reader fell directly from Garen's hand and fell to the ground. His face was pale, but he was slightly awakened by the fall. Garen took a look at his current situation. The first soul ring has been repaired as before, leaving only slight scars on the soul seed, but the impact is not big and will slowly disappear with subsequent nourishment. The second soul ring has already condensed 4 soul seeds, all of which are colorless and transparent, full soul seeds, and the last 5th one has condensed less than half, which is obviously due to insufficient soul power. But that's it. In the status bar at this moment, my soul limit has reached 90 points. Kongxiafi Strength 14, Agility 14, Constitution 16, Intelligence 11, Potential 0%, Soul limit 90. The average quality has improved a lot. Moreover, the 2 soul rings continuously spurted out pure soul power that was at least 3 times stronger than the original, nourishing his entire body. A mind reader can make me make such a big improvement. Garen felt happy. Buzz. Once again, violent vibrations and explosions came from the outside world, which turned into slight tremors through the secret room. Humph! Garen strode towards the door of the secret room. Opening the door, the sounds outside suddenly became louder and louder. Laugh! A sharp armor-piercing bullet instantly hit him between the eyebrows from the front. Presumptuous! Garen grabbed it with one hand, and his right hand with terrifying speed, and an afterimage was instantly held in front of his face. When his palm was wrong, there was a crack, and some bullet fragments and metal suddenly scattered directly from his palm. How is that possible? The man in the white trench coat who took the lead watched Garen walk out of the secret room from a distance, and the armor-piercing bullet was crushed by him with one hand. How could the power of sin fail? He stared at Galen almost incredulously. There was a window in the middle of the secret room, which was made of high-strength glass. At this moment, the two of them were looking at each other from a distance. They all instantly saw each other's true identity. Void creature, Garen's voice penetrated the glass and reached the ears of the man in the white windbreaker. The man's dark eyes were suddenly horrified. Withdraw, he roared. Number 4 ignored Vulture Number 4 and others who had already rushed in for the most part. Instead, he turned around and ran. In Nyata's base, the entire building complex was in the shape of a circle, and vulture number 4 and others were like sharp knives inserted directly into the center of the circle, barely able to enter the main building. Although there were many people around them aiming at vulture number 4, no one dared to shoot. After all, as vulture's top brass, the former number 5 had terrible power and voice. They just kept releasing bombs symbolically in an attempt to take advantage of the shock and aftermath of the explosion. Organizing Vulture 4 also aims to remind Garen in the secret room. At this moment, Vulture number 4 was slightly startled when he heard the man in the white trench coat behind him roaring to retreat. Retreat? Are you kidding me? Now that we've reached this point, you want me to retreat? He strode towards the main building regardless. The white main building reflects the metallic texture in the sunlight. Boom! The door inside was suddenly knocked away, and it flew out from the inside, slamming into number 4 and others. The woman with dark eyes took a step forward, sneered and put her hand in front of number 4. What are you afraid of? Garen has definitely been tortured by that thing. Bang! Before she finished speaking, the woman was hit hard like a locomotive. 4 jet pipes opened behind her, and white air was sprayed out like an explosion. It was of no avail. The huge kinetic energy pushed her backwards. Go out. Along the way, he bumped into more than a dozen of his subordinates behind him, all of whom lay injured and wailed. No 4's expression changed and he quickly retreated. But it was too late. A strong figure rushed out of the door like a train and hit him hard in the front. Bang! You dare to kill me? Number 4 felt as if his whole body had been run over by an elephant. His whole body was knocked away without any resistance. While his body was suspended in the air, he roared loudly and was immediately hit by a big hand. Rinka grabbed his neck and pulled back. Viewed from above, the entire number 4 team was directly hit by a white figure. With a roar, they were knocked over. The strongest number 4 and the black-eyed woman were directly knocked away. They were thrown up like building blocks and rolled around for a few times. He was caught unexpectedly. Garen was dressed in white simple clothes and grabbed Vulture number 4 with one hand. Too weak. He shook his head slightly. Laugh. No 4's face turned red and he was speechless, but the surroundings of his body suddenly exploded and shot out countless steel balls, as if there were a large number of steel ball launching devices installed inside his body at any time. With a bang, the huge amount of steel balls turned into a gray shadow and enveloped Garen. Cha-cha, a light blue electric arc was directly connected between all the steel balls. 10 million volts, number 4 laughed wildly. If you dare to humiliate me, die. Being grabbed by the neck in public, this kind of humiliation is comparable to the hatred of life and death. If he doesn't regain his face, he won't have the shame to continue to stay in the Vulture. It's boring to show off. Garen's free left hand disappeared like lightning. As if a peacock spread its wings in front of him, hundreds of arms appeared in an instant. Countless arms and palms flashed in the air, and at the same time they quickly merged into one palm. Click. All the steel balls were crushed into a ball by him, turning into a twisted mass of steel waste, which fell to the ground with a bang. Number 4 was stunned for a moment. His teeth began to chatter violently. This ability to forcibly defeat his fatal kill with the body is no longer at the human level. This is simply a mythical power like the 4 cornerstones. No. I was just forced. Puff. Garen directly crushed his neck, and a ball of blood mist exploded from his hand, splattering a little bit of blood on him, but he didn't care. Vulture number 4 was like a duck with its neck broken, its head and body separated directly, falling into 2 pieces and falling to the ground. Bisenson's trachea continued to make whistling sounds. He actually killed No 4. I don't want to die. Withdraw. Withdraw. Before the subordinates behind number 4 could react, they saw Garen crushing No 4's neck. Number 4 actually killed a Vulture executive without caring about anything. Suddenly a group of people retreated frantically. Even the direct subordinates in Garen base were silent, not knowing how to react. As one of the top 5 Vulture executives, he directly killed a senior executive of the same level without the approval of number 1. Is Garen going to rebel? Regardless of any rules or human ethics, number 1 must execute Garen, otherwise without the rules, the entire organization will be in chaos. Garen doesn't know the consequences. Of course he knew it, but at this level, what else could threaten him? Even Poseidon, with the nourishment of his 2 soul rings, will surpass him in a short time. Garen himself was angered by the sneak attack just now. At this moment, he was still listening to No 4's screams. He accidentally used too much force on his hands, and then, nothing happened. Number 4 died immediately. Unexpectedly vulnerable. The black-eyed woman backed away in fear step by step, turned around and started running wildly. The time between Garen's appearance and the killing of number 4 was not even more than 5 seconds. The situation was reversed instantly. Her plot against Garen failed, and now she must face his wrath. A Demon King level Void Stalker. There is almost no difference in the balance of victory and defeat. Want to leave? Garen focused all his attention on the woman and the man in the white windbreaker. The latter had already run some distance. And the woman is right in front of her. It is obviously possessed by a void creature. As a master of dream manipulation, it is very simple for a void creature to hypnotize a person through dreams and control him at the same time. With a stamp of his foot, he rushed forward, more than twice as fast as the woman. It was almost as if he teleported and appeared directly in front of the woman. He stretched out his arm and grabbed the woman's neck directly. Stop! A loud roar suddenly came from the distance. It was the voice of an old woman. Garen's arm paused slightly and continued to grab it. He suddenly saw a trace of happiness flashing in the woman's eyes. Obviously the other party still has something to rely on. It's just that at this point, I don't know what other cards the opponent has to play. You can't kill me, the woman recovered slightly from her panic. Let Garen grab his neck and be lifted directly into the air. Can't I kill you? Garen tilted his head slightly and looked at the large group of people rushing in from the gate in the distance. The old woman number 2 rushed in with a cane and a large group of people, and controlled the internal soldiers of the base. As number 2, she was almost the absolute controller of the entire Vulture. When number 1 did not appear, everything was based on her. What is said shall prevail. I told you to stop, number 2 shouted. Garen, she is not an ordinary woman. She is. Bang. Garen's other hand plunged straight into the woman's chest, and blood spattered all over him. Then he turned his head and looked at the old woman. What did you just say? Garen even had a faint smile on his face, as if he was not killing people, but just watering flowers. No 2's expression froze, and his face suddenly turned pale. The next words were all stuck in my heart and I couldn't say them out. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1216. With a tear, Garen's hand was pulled out from the woman's chest, bringing out a large amount of blood. At the same time, he actually dug out a still beating red heart. You, the woman who was suspected of being parasitized by void creatures struggled and said, someone, will avenge me. Her body continued to exude a large amount of soul power visible to the naked eye, which was directly inhaled by Garen gently into her mouth and nose. Nothing is wasted. I'll wait, Garen replied calmly. Bang. The woman died immediately, and her body fell to the ground. The impact sound immediately woke up number 2 completely. She turned pale, raised her hand, and pointed at Garen. But he couldn't speak, he just kept trembling. Galen number 4 didn't take it seriously and looked straight at the young man in white trench coat who had run far away. Whoosh! He instantly disappeared from the spot. His speed was so fast that no one around him could catch up with his movements. Even the dynamic vision of his eyes could not capture his speed. Only a blurry flash could be seen, and Garen appeared directly hundreds of meters away. The man was only half a mile away. In another flash, the two were close at hand. Garen could even see the horrified face of the man in the white trenchcoat. The opponent's pitch-black eyes not only lacked pupils, but also lacked even the basic whites of the eyes. They were obviously parasitized by void creatures. In this world, there seems to be records of being parasitized by void creatures, which is called being possessed by demons. After being possessed, a person's eyes will become pitch black and there will be nothing, which represents a bottomless abyss. Seeing that he was about to be caught, the man opened his mouth and screamed wildly. An invisible sound wave like a bat spread wildly, and like a tsunami, it quickly gathered into a force that rushed towards Garen behind him. Soul shock, Garen's body trembled slightly, and he immediately knew he had caught a big fish. The other person was knocked back more than 10 meters by the impact, but instead of getting angry, he started laughing. It's actually a soul shock. It seems that it is at least a void creature above the general level. Maybe it is also a Demon King level. In this universe, even the Demon King level void creatures will be severely suppressed and will not be so abnormal. And after killing such void creatures, it will also be of great help to Garen's own improvement as a void hunter. Even the void crystal core obtained from it is comparable to the mind reader soul ring just absorbed. Good stuff, Garen laughed. In his eyes, the other person was no longer a human being. He was simply a living ginseng that could run away. With eyes like looking at food, Garen chased after him again. The man was horrified. He was on the same level as Black Dog Sin Quan. They were both demon kings, but they were only junior demon kings. Moreover, their strength was severely damaged after being severely injured by chance. It was originally planned that after successfully killing Garen in a sneak attack, he would be able to obtain Garen's soul ring and the mind reader's spirit ring in one fell swoop, killing two birds with one stone. Unexpectedly, the situation changed drastically. Now not only is the power of Sin dead, but he also has to face Garen's pursuit and revenge. With a bite of his teeth, the young man in white immediately mobilized his little demon power, his speed suddenly increased, and he shot rapidly into the distance. Garen was not to be outdone. He only slowed down slightly and followed closely. The two of them disappeared from everyone's sight almost in the blink of an eye. What to do now? A school-level officer asked Vulture 2. What should we do? Number 2 also saw clues from a series of changes. It was obvious that the young man in white and the stupid woman joined forces with number 4 to try to harm Garen, but they were counterattacked. Death is death, injury is injury. But the identity of the dead woman cannot be underestimated. If it were just an ordinary person, it would be nothing, but the other party was. A trace of worry flashed in No 2's eyes, and his heart sank to the bottom when he thought of Galleon's barely human-like strength just now. Once a conflict breaks out between the two sides, it will not only be a matter of grudge between two people, but the entire country of Sri Lanka will be in turmoil. It would be fine if he could kill Garen, but if he could escape, the Red Country and the Black Federation would be very happy to accept the strongest master like Garen. Immediately investigate the identity of the man in the white trench coat just now. At the same time, collect the body of MRS Song No 2's voice lowered. I will notify number 1 and President Song Lingshan immediately. The people around him suddenly felt chilled. The identity of this woman on the ground is actually the wife of President Song Lingshan, the supreme leader of Sri Lanka. But isn't President Song's wife Zhao Qiumu? Gen Z Dr. Giatai asked with a stern face. They followed just now, but the change happened so quickly that no one had time to react. Everything just happened. This is his second wife. Number 2 seemed to have aged several years all of a sudden. Once a conflict broke out between the two parties, he would inevitably choose to give up Galleon. No matter whether he was public or private, he would have no choice but to give up on him. The supreme leader of the country, no matter how powerful one side is, is still just one person, and how to choose is simply a simple matter. You're still too young and energetic. With a long sigh, number 2 turned around and walked away. Publish a wanted order. The deputy of number 1 also arrived. As soon as he got out of the car, he spoke directly to number 2 with a stern look on his face. Giottai and others were completely at a loss. The situation changed so fast that people were at a loss as to what to do. Everything was already a foregone conclusion. Tank repair yard. 2 white shadows rushed into the huge maintenance site instantly. Some veterans who were still undergoing maintenance seemed to hear something and stuck their heads out of the tanks to look outside. Boom! A white shadow was hit hard against the side of a black tank, and the entire tank was dented directly. A large number of metal parts were broken and flew away, scattering like glass. A white shadow rushed towards him from behind and punched him. Boom! The tank was blocked. It was like paper, dented inward. The metal plates on both sides were flattened and pressed together, and then the section collapsed, like broken chopsticks. There wasn't even time to roll back to remove the force of the impact. The man's speed was so fast that one could hardly see his fists and only thought they were bombarded by artillery shells. "You can't kill me," the white figure in front rushed out from the debris of the tank, covered in blood, roaring wildly, but anyone could hear the deep fear in his tone. Without saying a word, Garin retracted his right fist and chased after him again. Bang! The punch was empty and hit the ground hard. Avoided by the man. Garin didn't take it seriously. He rotated his body around his right hand and swept his legs across. Aha! A round of silver-white sword light flashed out of thin air. A sharp cut was made directly on the man's chest clothes. Is this? He looked ferocious, confused, turned around and continued running. Anywhere on the body can bring out blade-like lethality. This is the truly scariest part. This level may not be a big deal in other universes, but in this place with such huge restrictions, it is incredible that such an achievement can be achieved. Apart from being faster than Garin, he could hardly see any hope of escaping. "Silver, please. I won't die." Definitely not, he kept praying and started running around the Z shape. At the same time, a large amount of small black granular things were continuously spilled from his hand, and they were scattered on the ground behind him. Bang 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 bang. Continuous explosions and flames shot into the sky, and these little things were actually all kinds of bombs. Amidst countless flames, Garin walked out unscathed. "Little Ginseng, where else do you want to run?" There was even a smile on his face. "Consuming too much will affect the efficacy of the medicine." Garin's whole body suddenly burned with a faint white flame. It was an invisible realm fire. Only those who have reached extremely high heights and transcended the limits of the world can have such a flame. The game ends here. Before he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared and appeared directly in front of the man in white. The hand knife slashed down. "Demon soul," the man roared wildly, and his speed also increased greatly, but more than half of his soul power was consumed in an instant, and he could barely move a small distance to the left. Boom! The sword in his hand missed and hit the ground straight. Tear! A huge crack and ravine more than 10 meters long appeared on the ground below. Garin's hand kept turning a faint red color, which was caused by the scorching heat generated after violent friction, the huge strength and terrifying speed, and the huge momentum that was so powerful that it was abnormal. The man almost watched the hand knife scratch a little bit in front of his nose, and he didn't dare to move at all, almost. Just a little. He was completely cut into 2 pieces. Huh. 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 The hot airflow continued to pour into the chest, and the man did not dare to move any more. He watched Garin in front of him, raised his palm at least 100 degrees, and blew in the faint smoke coming from it. The speeds of both parties reversed instantly. The other party could obviously continue to move, but he could only explode for such a moment. The outcome is already clear. I really didn't expect that you could catch up even here. Garen stretched out his hand and grabbed the man's head. Countless soul power emanated from Garen's hands in a space invisible to the naked eye, like countless small snakes burrowing into the man's mouth, nose, and ears. Tear. The clothes on the two men were instantly torn to pieces. Huge force field fluctuations erupted like a heart. Tear opened their shirts. Different lines slowly appeared on their chests. There is a black sun pattern on Garen's chest, which is the representative of the original divine pattern, and represents the extraordinary in this universe. On the man's chest was a huge jet black eyeball, which continuously exuded a huge amount of soul power and was quickly absorbed by Galleon's black sun pattern. The terrifying force field fluctuations directly isolated all the space more than 10 meters around the two people. Sooner or later you will be like me, the man struggled crazily and shouted at the end. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1217. Same, Garen dismissed it and accelerated the absorption of the soul ring. The devouring characteristics of the powerful cold hell peacock mother also brought a good devouring effect to his soul power. The nature of his soul power did not have the extreme attributes of other demon kings like Hessa's, but he had a good devouring ability. Of course, it also has basic nourishing capabilities. The real manifestation of this ability is at times like this, when it is used to absorb other people's soul power extremely smoothly. The black eyeball on the man's chest quickly faded and disappeared. The whole process takes no more than 30 seconds. There were already faint sounds of dense footsteps in the distance, and a large number of people from other places were also coming. Apparently the movement here attracted the attention of the soldiers in other bases. Bang! Garen let go of the corpse, and the man had completely lost his voice. As a parasite of the void creature, his soul had been devoured by the void creature a long time ago, and now all that is left is just a body. When the void creature that replaces the soul is devoured and destroyed, naturally the entire body becomes completely brain dead and turns into a corpse. Garen stood there, watching the changes in the attribute bar below his sight, and feeling the changes in his body becoming more and more powerful. Feeling extremely comfortable. He has always been worried in his heart. The void creature has not come to trouble him for so long, which is obviously abnormal. But now it seems that this worry has finally been lifted. After the soul ring absorbed this void creature, it had not been completely digested, but it had already turned an abnormal dark red color. The second soul ring was overflowing, and the fifth soul seed was condensed almost instantly, with a large amount of soul power beginning to gather towards the construction of the third soul ring. The soul limit directly exceeded 100, reaching an unprecedented height. The average physical fitness is at least a little higher than average. Kongzi strength 15, agility 15, constitution 17, intelligence 13, potential 0%, soul limit 90. Garen was vaguely immersed in his soaring power. Go back and get the contact device, and then go directly to the slaughterer, Garen made a plan. There is no need to stay in this world anymore. Now that he has figured out the operating mode of the lighthouse, he no longer needs the nine-tailed fox and others. Even using his own energy mark, he may know the operating rules of the lighthouse better than Kuabai and others. It doesn't matter how much harm the members of the lighthouse cause to the major universes. Even if they are criminals with heinous crimes, as long as they do not involve persecuting other travelers, the lighthouse will not control them. In other words, they regard the native residents of the major universes as the same as NPCs. They are superior to them and do not regard them as a human race at all. Such remarks can be seen everywhere on the forum, but there are also some people who hold opposing opinions, but the number is smaller. The highest organization of the lighthouse is the Dimensional Observer Organization. This organization manages the entire major universes and collects the rules and phenomena of various universes. The latest news and news about prominent travelers will be announced at regular intervals. The only purpose is to safeguard the common interests of all travelers. Because compared to the indigenous people of the entire major universe, the number and strength of time travelers are too small. Therefore, Garen knew that no matter what he did in this universe, as long as he did not directly endanger the safety of other time travelers, he would be fine. Of course, if he indirectly endangered the safety of other time travelers or no one knew about it, even the time travelers could still have a vendetta against each other. Absorb the slaughterer, and head directly to the lighthouse. Garen set his goal, and before the footsteps approached in the distance, he rushed towards the exit of the base gate. In the eyes of ordinary people, speed is almost just a shadow and cannot be seen clearly at all. Traveling all the way through the base, Garen quickly arrived at the gate of the base with ease. From a distance, a large number of black soldiers have been deployed there, and elite masters have also been mobilized here. Apparently number 2 was sure that he would leave the base from here in a fair manner. Number 2 stood behind everyone, leaning on a cane and looking quietly at Garen as he appeared, with a trace of helplessness and regret flashing in his eyes. Let's capture him without mercy. Garen. I never thought about it. Garen took a step forward. How dare someone dare to let me surrender in front of me? He had a light smile on his face, like two good friends greeting each other. But the person facing him at this time was not a good friend, but a dense formation of hundreds of elite soldiers semi-surrounding him in a ring. Except for number 1 and a few who were out of town, the top 20 vulture experts all arrived, and each of them started their own semi-mechanized armor transformation. Staring at Garen cautiously. Aim heavily at the red dot. Mule Galen, that's a laser sight. Don't be too crazy. Number 5 stood up and sneered, you are not the only strong person in this world. Moreover, no matter how strong you are alone, why would we still be afraid of you if there are so many masters here? Number 5 has long been dissatisfied with the young guy in Garen who was pressing down on him, and now he just found an opportunity. He never expected that he would not be able to find Garen's flaw no matter how hard he searched, but instead he actually made such a big flaw himself. This made him ecstatic as he wanted to take a step further, and similarly, after hearing that after learning the whole process of the Garan riot, he also felt a little chilled by the death of number 4, so in order to make the plan go smoothly, he immediately summoned a large number of elites. In name, it was to encircle and suppress Garan. In fact, it is to protect myself and important person number 2 first. Garen was too lazy to pay attention to this guy. The two sides were not on the same level at all. His eyes looked directly at number 2, falling on the vulture's real power figure. What do you have to say? When things have reached this point, what can you say? Number 1 and I value you so much. Number 2 sighed. In that case, let's get out of the way. Garen looked at the people blocking the door. At least half of these elites were trained by him personally. Some even learned a lot from him and were willing to worship him as their teacher. The two-tailed scorpion and the butcher were also among them. Both of them lowered their heads and did not dare to look at him. The two of them are different from the others, not because of respect or affection, but because they know clearly Garen's true hidden strength and understand that these people will never be able to stop him, which is why they are afraid. It's impossible to get out of the way, number 2 said firmly. Once he gets out of the way, the entire vulture's prestige will be completely destroyed. It seems that we have to take action. Garen walked directly to the door and regarded the people blocking the door as nothing. Stop, a vulture ranking master shouted. Perhaps he wanted to show off in front of the higher UPS, or perhaps he was looking down upon Garen. He jumped out, two huge sickle-like weapons popped out of his hands, and slashed at Garen. There was even a red electric light on both sides of the weapon, which seemed to be some kind of advanced propulsion device. The others did not move, but the brightest and most dazzling beam of light hit Garen's eyes accurately, shaking his vision. Bang! The two scythes fell hard on Garen's right arm, and then the section was damaged in an instant like a paper shell. It broke into several sections and flew out horizontally. The fragments were rotated and nailed into the nearby wall and ground. The master was directly grabbed by Garen's chest with one hand and his clothes were hanging high in the air. For a top master like Garen, not to mention such a terrifying physical quality, even a slightly weaker body can produce superb effects under the use of his strength. It is normal for one's strength to produce a very effective effect. No excess power is wasted, and the efficiency is terrifyingly high. The wind ahead. Garen grabbed the opponent's chest and said calmly, "Tear." The man's body, which was as solid as gold and iron, instantly split apart and flew to both sides, and his blood splashed all over the floor. Muscles and bones, along with internal organs and semi-mechanized armor, were all neatly divided into two. The ultra-close frontal wind sword technique instantly split the man into two pieces without any resistance. Taking Galleon as the starting point, a fan-shaped red land appeared directly on the white ground directly in front of him. That was what sputtered out after the master's corpse was torn apart. For a moment, the scene shocked the rest of the people who were preparing to coordinate the attack just now. "You can't fight him in close combat." No two's face turned gloomy. Even she had never known how powerful Garen was. She only saw from her enemies that Garen's power was terrifying, but it didn't matter how terrifying it was. Clear. But in front of her, a top 20 expert couldn't survive one round under Garen, and she suddenly felt a little nervous. "Aim from a long distance and shoot," number 5 suddenly shouted from the side. Before number 2 could stop him, once the shooting started in full force, it would probably cause a complete rift between the two sides, but no 5's words had already been shouted out. "He also has fire command authority over the base." Boom. The overwhelming firepower erupted at the same time, all focused towards Garen. Bullets, snipers, artillery shells, stray bullets, electromagnetic bombs, lasers, poison gas bombs, poison needles, and countless other high-risk weapons were bombarded at Galen at the same time, and the sky seemed to light up all of a sudden. That was caused by the simultaneous flash of terrifying light when the fire was fired. Amidst the loud noise, Garen raised his hand and moved his lips. He didn't know what he said. His whole body was instantly submerged in the gunfire, and he couldn't see anything. A blinding light exploded directly where he was. Light and fire were so intertwined that it was impossible to tell them apart. "Who is releasing poisonous smoke?" "You're looking for death," number 5 cursed wildly. "There are so many people here, and the power of the bomb explosion will cause airflow to spread. At this time, releasing highly toxic smoke is simply killing people." The disadvantage that the vultures had never had to fight together was immediately apparent. But no one noticed. The two-tailed scorpion and the root doctor Giottai quietly put away the gas bomb launchers in their hands and disappeared into the back of the crowd. The poisonous smoke was released by these two people. The two people who were very aware of Garen's strength knew that it was impossible for these people to stop Garen. Back in the sea capital, such a powerful person was slaughtered by Garen. People like this are nothing at all. At their level, they are not truly top masters and cannot threaten Galleons at all. Instead of seeking death, it is better to find an opportunity to let people go. This is the result of the secret communication between Dr. Gen Z and the two-tailed scorpion through headphones just now. Compared to the vultures, they believed in Garen's strength more. Withdrawing from the crowd, Giottai looked at the explosion flash inside from a distance. "I was speechless for a long time. I wonder where Garen wants to go. Can you go with him?" "I happen to think so too," the two-tailed scorpion smiled. "A man like Garen is pretty good to his subordinates and his own people. He is generous and generous. If anything happens, as long as it doesn't involve his moral bottom line, he can help you stop it. On weekdays, you won't have many people controlling you, so you can be called a model of imitating being a boss." "What a pity," Vulture Giottai shook his head. Listen carefully, there will be screams soon. Ah! Sure enough, a sharp scream came from the crowd immediately. The two-tailed scorpion looked at Giottai with admiration. Excellent. He is truly a master of strategy. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1218. Garen held No 5's neck with one hand, the same posture as number 4. He allowed the various blade weapons in his hands to cut and hit his arms wildly, but to no avail. Number 5 is as powerful as an elephant, and with his current strength there is no resistance at all. No one knows how Garen broke through and rushed into the crowd. They just saw a huge hole in his original position, and his men suddenly appeared in the crowd and grabbed the 5 men hiding in the middle with one hand. The rest of the people hurriedly retreated in fear. The Vulture's people were originally elite experts gathered from various places, gathered together in a hiring-like manner, and there was no high level of loyalty at all. Seeing this scene, some people were immediately dumbfounded. Others who knew about Garen's perversion, or the masters who participated in the operation across the sea capital, retreated covertly. No 2's expression was extremely ugly. She did not expect Garen to be so strong. So many firepower nets were completely useless to him, and he directly broke through the defense line like a ghost. Galen, number 2 snapped, "Don't make the same mistake again and again." She could also see it at this moment. It seemed that the really powerful experts were hiding their efforts and being passive and sabotaging. Garen had only been in the organization for more than a year. It was impossible for people to reach this level. There was only one reason. That means everyone is simply afraid of him. They are afraid. Number 2 came to a conclusion that he didn't quite believe. With so many masters and such a large organization, how could they be afraid of a young man who was no more than 20 years old? This is simply ridiculous. If the massacre is still possible, as an enemy of 10,000 people, etc. Slaughterer. Number 2's heart was shocked, and he suddenly remembered the record of Garen and the Slaughterer fighting head-on and escaping unharmed. Looking up at Galen at this moment, she suddenly thought of a possibility. If Garen's real strength is on the same level as the Slaughterer, then with so few people right now, not only can't he stop him, they may even suffer heavy casualties. Thinking of this, she felt a chill in her heart. "Put down number 5 and I'll let you go," number 2 shouted decisively. Garen's lips curved. To be honest, he didn't want to completely break up with Vulture. After all, he left, Kong Xingxiu and others were still here. After all, they were once his companions, and Kuabai and others also gave him a lot of help. So he didn't want to completely break up with Vulture unless he had to. Now that number 5 is caught and he is not killed immediately, it is because number 5 has a different identity and belongs to the real high level. Another reason is that he is waiting for number 2 to make a decision. Now number 2 has obviously made a decision. As for number 5, the other one who had the power to make the decision, Garen was grabbing his chest and suppressing him so hard that he couldn't even speak. It's like a useless person. Garen looked towards the crowd blocking the exit. "Make way," number 2 shouted sharply. Immediately, Vulture and the others were eager to leave quickly and gave in one after another. They were mercenaries, not dead soldiers. The firepower just now could not do anything to Garen, and if they went up again, they would die. At this time, there was an order to let Garen leave openly. "Thank you very much." Garen strode out of the base gate with number 5 in his arms and threw number 5 aside. "See you next time." He turned around and smiled. Aha! The whole person disappeared in an instant, and no one could capture which direction he went. They just felt a breeze blowing slowly, and then everything returned to calm. There was only the sound of the huge crater that had been blasted out when the fire was concentrated, and the sound of flames still burning on the edge. Vulture Sword Master, Garen Rebellion. The news spread throughout the continents overnight, and the Red Country and especially the Black Federation, which had suffered losses from galleons, received the intelligence information immediately. Wanted orders were immediately issued respectively. Of course, this was only a superficial wanted order. The two major powers secretly announced directly that as long as Garin was willing to join their armed forces organization, his seat in the highest armed forces organization would be filled immediately. Especially the Black Federation directly offered an unprecedented annual salary of 100 million. There are no more than 3 masters in the world who can fight against the slaughterer head-on without losing for the time being. Galleons is one of them. In addition, he is too young and has unlimited potential. This leads to the fact that various countries attach great importance to it. Some time later, during the annual gathering of troops from the 3 kingdoms to strangle the massacres, people from the Black Federation even openly mocked the people from the Slan Kingdom, threatening that they could not retain talents at all and that this was a sign of the decline of national power. The two sides almost came to blows, but it ended with Slan's forbearance. They have become accustomed to forbearance. From the past until now, forbearance has become a habit. They used to have some confidence with Garin, but now that their strongest force is gone, each one of them is even more depressed. After the routine joint search for the massacre failed, the elites of the 3 countries' troops returned to their countries, and the international situation returned to its original situation. The Slan Kingdom shrank across the board, while the Black Federation began to expand again, and the Red Country was still in civil strife and had no time to take care of itself. As for the Mind Reader, he was quietly rescued by Yureva when he went to the country of Silan for an inspection. Although he lost the power of the divine pattern, it is not a bad thing to live as an ordinary person in this life, but Yureva was injured. What's wrong is that the idea of relying on a mind reader to find his sister and mother failed again. The 9-tailed fox and others were unable to contact Garin at all, and there was no reply even after the communicator sent a message. The phone can't be connected. All means of contact have been cut off. After many attempts, they finally gave up. Anyway, they had obtained the mind-reading mark. Woo! On the blue sea, a white speedboat quickly soared into the distance, dragging long white waves from its tail. Galen stood on top of the speedboat, his whole appearance completely changed, with blonde hair, colorful sunglasses, shirtless, fancy beach shorts and a pair of white flip-flops. Even the height is shorter than before. He looks like a total swinger. The speedboat sailed straight towards the invisible sea level in the distance. This was already a deep sea area, but Garin was not worried at all about the trouble of not being able to go back and losing his direction. Instead, he was enjoying the sea breeze with a leisurely expression. Before I knew it, more than an hour had passed. Garin squatted on the speedboat, still looking ahead from a distance. On the distant sea level, an equally simple white speedboat gradually appeared. Standing on the boat was a slender man in total darkness. His whole body was shrouded in shadow, with only a pair of eyes exposed, glowing with a faint red fluorescence. The man held a red wooden umbrella in his hand to block the water splashing and falling around him. The red eyes looked far away in the direction of Galleon. He gently took off his black mask, revealing a pale face that was even more beautiful than the woman's. It gives people a weak and helpless feeling of pity. The slaughterer Garin stood up and grabbed a narrow blade more than 3 meters long behind him. Is this your true appearance? From a distance, his voice penetrated the wind and waves and reached directly into the ears of the massacre. You and I are both the strongest people in the world. The plain voice of the massacre also reached Garin's ears. This is my respect for you. The strongest, Garin laughed. Where is Poseidon? I cut off its wings 10 times with my sword. Jialong's expression was startled, and then he calmed down. He knew the details of Poseidon, but one of his wings had been cut off by the Slayer. It seemed that he had underestimated the power of the Slayer. After this battle, you and I will be the only ones in the world. The massacre gently lowered the pink wooden umbrella on its side with a calm expression. Garen smiled and didn't reply. He jumped hard, and with a bang, the speedboat broke apart and exploded under his feet. He fell to the sea, looked at the water as if it were flat ground, and started running quickly, heading straight for the massacre. Collapse. 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 The footsteps stepped on the sea, making a collision like a drum. The two of them were instantly close. Clang. The Garen blade was suddenly unsheathed and he clenched it with both hands. The huge silver-white cylindrical metal instrument rotates slowly. The machine is located in a huge underground base space, with a clean, snow-white bed in front of it. A naked girl held the quilt with one hand to cover most of her skin. Her long snow-white hair flowed down her shoulders and scattered on the quilt. The girl was sitting on the big bed, her eyes slightly closed. The cylindrical machine behind her slowly started up, and slowly opened in front of the girl, revealing a huge oval screen, with a man's figure clearly displayed on it. Brother Yurova. The girl turned sideways, opened her eyes, and looked at the man on the screen. The world will change. Are you ready? Shyjinkin. An old voice came from the machine. Are you not dead yet? The girl looked numbly at the top of the metal instrument. The look in his eyes was completely different from the tenderness he showed when he looked at Yurova. Death, the voice laughed. How can I die without seeing you die? Laugh. A silver-white spiked metal suddenly shot out from the top of the instrument and stabbed the girl's body fiercely. Puff. Shyjinkin's thin body was directly pierced by the sharp thorn in the right chest. The strange thing was that there was no blood flowing out from the edge of the wound. How pathetic. Can't you even shed blood? You are an empty shell, the old voice sarcastically said. Shyjinkin had no expression, and had no feeling at all about the sharp thorns piercing him, as if they were not pierced at all. Since that year, hasn't my blood been drained long ago? She said softly. Immortal body. Why don't you die? Why would you rather be tortured than suppress me? The old voice became unwilling, and his emotions seemed to fluctuate a bit. Wouldn't it be better to let go of everything and go accompany your brother? Over the years, you have weaved such a beautiful dream for your brother, parents, relatives, family, peace, tranquility. You have all the beautiful things, and you still want to. What do you want? Shyjinkin didn't answer, just lowered his head and closed his eyes quietly. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1219. Boom. The Garen sword slashed hard at the top of the Slayer's umbrella. The red paint was knocked off, revealing the black metal texture underneath the umbrella. With a snap, the slaughterer turned his arm, and the umbrella suddenly spun at high speed. Shocking Garen's blade. Your strength is stronger again. He jumped back slightly, and the round umbrella cover was slightly closed to absorb the violent impact of Garen. The speed of the two is similar. Slaughterer was originally faster than Garen, but now due to his average quality points, Garen's speed is actually not slower than him. Without any hesitation, Garen rushed forward, and the blade turned into a disc of silver, shooting directly at the opponent. At the same time, he raised his right leg, raising a large amount of sea water and turning it into a substantial attack. Under his power, even ordinary sea water will turn into a terrifying murder weapon with the blessing of huge power. Eclipse. The massacre's eyes suddenly lit up red, and the red umbrella accelerated and turned at a crazy high speed, just blocking the silver disc blade. At the same time, the edge of the umbrella went down, just in time to cut into the large sea water that was lifted up below. Tisk tisk tisk. In an instant, more than 10 invisible airflow blades burst out from the umbrella surface, attacking Galen from the left. All the blade airflows gathered together, leaving clear white traces in the sea water. Although they were clear, they were extremely fast. What he took was that Galen was in a state of decline when he was about to make a move. At the moment when his strength was exhausted, he was unable to resist at all. Comparing with me in changing moves, Garlean's blade turned slightly, and shot out a blade wind that just met the airflow of the blade. The blade wind penetrated the airflow fiercely, directly cancelling out all the airflow before dissipating naturally, reflecting Galleon's precision. The technique of using force like a scalpel will never waste any extra force. Burst. The slaughterer suddenly leaned closer, and the red umbrella turned violently, like a large screen spinning and hitting Garin. The muscles on his left hand suddenly expanded by at least twice, and were not as thick as a human hand. Before the umbrella hit him, Garin felt a strong sense of oppression coming towards him. The Slayer was completely different from the mind readers and Yureva. His use of soul rings had reached the pinnacle. I have no idea how long I have lived before I accumulated so much experience. This burst of power is based on the temporary strengthening of expanded muscles, making the move more than twice the original strength, and it also carries high-speed rotation. If you are not careful, you will be easily broken through by the opponent. Garin had just exhausted his moves and had not yet had time to recover his strength, so he had to turn slightly sideways to avoid this move. Shadow of the lunar eclipse, the slaughterer's umbrella shook and was suddenly torn. The entire umbrella directly split into more than 10 parts, turning into more than 10 black shadows and drilling into the sea below, like swimming fish, surrounding the canal from all sides. Long wind from all directions. Garin's blade spun continuously, and at the same time, 4 sides of silver light rose around his body, blocking more than a dozen black shadows. Silver light and black shadow collided and collapsed together. Boom! The place where the two met on the sea suddenly exploded, creating a wave of more than 10 meters. The waves all over the sky turned into raindrops and splashed on the surrounding sea. Whoosh! With 2 crisp sounds, Garin and the slaughterer rushed out of the spray and raindrops respectively. The blade brought out strong light and shadow, and hit the red and black umbrella handle hard, blooming golden sparks of different sizes. The long sword turned into a shadow, and each slash brought out a large amount of wind and water splashes. The top of the umbrella handle was sharp and was used as a spear and a club by the massacrers. Dragon Rider, the massacrer's spear shook, and the spear circled around him at high speed, automatically swimming in the water beside him like a living snake. He himself continued to dodge the blades that Garin slashed at high speed. Aha! A huge circle appeared directly on the large sea area around Garin and the slaughterer, and an oval-shaped mouth slowly opened in the center, biting Garin like a black abyss. That's a giant whirlpool. Snort. Garin was not afraid at all, his offensive continued unabated, and he and the slaughterer fell into the center of the huge whirlpool at the same time. In the dark blue vortex, surrounded by dark blue and slightly black whirlpool water walls, in the middle of the air, the two people fell straight down. It's like falling into a bottomless abyss. What's strange is that the huge whirlpool is getting bigger and bigger, and the sunken hole in the center is getting deeper and deeper, as if it is connecting to the abyss of the seabed. The surroundings were depressing, and only the dark blue-black seawater wall could be seen. Except for a little white light above the head, there was no light. Garin clearly felt that the Slayer's strength and speed had increased by nearly half in this environment. The pressure suddenly increased. Create an environment that is strong for you. His face was stern, and his offensive gradually slowed down. Aha! The spear narrowly missed his throat, and Garin stepped hard on the water wall with his legs. With the help of high-speed rotation, his entire body turned into a ball of blades. He quickly fell behind the killer and strangled him on the back. Dang! The umbrella handle and the long knife collided fiercely. The massacrer's body did not turn, and he blocked the gallon slash with his backhand. He was knocked straight towards the water wall. Strangled, the massacre said softly. The sound waves seemed to vibrate with some coordinated force. With a bang, snake-like white water waves suddenly emerged from the countless water walls around them, rushing towards Garin, like magic. Garin's offensive was blocked. He jumped back lightly, and used the force to land on the whirlpool water wall behind him. The solace of his legs and feet vibrated at high speed, offsetting the huge rotational force of the whirlpool on the water wall, as if he was standing steadily on a flat bottom. The warm-up is complete. Is it time to take out the real thing? His long knife instantly turned into an afterimage and disappeared, and his whole body burned with white flames. Swish, swish, all the water snakes were easily cut off and disappeared. The long sword reappeared instantly, held in Garen's right hand, pointing diagonally downward. The killer's eyes darkened. He also stood on another water wall, standing still. The two faced each other more than 10 meters apart. Sure enough, your strength has become much stronger. He casually threw away the handle of the umbrella in his hand. It seems there is no way to keep it. If you die, I hope she won't blame me. Garen frowned. It was obvious that the slaughterer had not used his full strength yet. I once killed a strange creature. The killer raised his right arm with his palm upward, as if he was holding something. His eyes were dark and gave people a very weird feeling. Garen's heart trembled, and he immediately knew that the other party was talking about void creatures. Then what? The slaughterer''s palm slowly began to swell. I feel that your breath is similar to theirs. Tisk. His right arm swelled from shoulder to palm, and a sharp white bone spur protruded directly from the shoulder. At the same time, the slaughterer''s entire body shape changed. His body quickly grew from 1.8 meters to more than 2 meters, and the muscles all over his body became stronger and stronger. Even his head began to swell violently, and the muscles in the back of his head bulged. They formed a strange triangle, as if there was a flesh-colored triangular plate hanging behind the head. The chest sank deeply, and a neat round hole appeared. Laugh. The round hole actually penetrated the entire massacre's chest, revealing the dark blue water wall behind him, forming a hollow that runs through the chest. Things like fish fins grew out of the palms of the killer's hands and were connected to the back of his hands. The toes on both legs became sharper and sharper, and long black nails grew out like daggers. In just a few seconds, the slaughterer transformed from a beautiful boy into a powerful monster with no human form at all. The original sin countless soul powers suddenly gathered in his palm, condensing into a ball, a small red ball, with something twisting and arching outwards, as if there were some insects trying to rush out of the red ball. Garen narrowed his eyes. The strangeness of the situation was beyond his understanding. In this kind of cosmic world, such a high degree of mutation and distortion can actually be displayed. The soul power fluctuations in the massacre's body have become so dense that even he is horrified. Obviously, although there is only one soul ring, the slaughterer has developed the use of this soul ring to the extreme. This kind of power development even surpasses his two current soul ring level demon kings. Both are demon kings, but Garen thinks he can't achieve the same level as the other one. As expected of the protagonist of the local universe. The first of the four cornerstones. A trace of dangerous aura emanated from the massacre, surrounding Garen like a cold snake. Obviously the current massacre has enough strength to threaten his life. This is not a simple battle that does not involve souls like before. This is a fight between demon kings. Once they fall, it will be the end of the complete fall of the soul ring and soul will. Crack. With the long knife lying in front of him, Garen narrowed his eyes slightly, and the white flames on his body became more dense. Thunder. There was a soft sound, and Garen suddenly felt his eyes flashing. The center of the originally dark vortex suddenly brightened up, and countless blue electric lights filled his entire field of vision. He only felt countless electric currents and lightning bombarding him from all around. It was as if the entire vortex suddenly became a conductive tool for the Slayer. There is no hiding. Surrounded by water whirlpools, Garen had no place to dodge and could only resist. Boom! A large current rushed to him fiercely, and Garen's hair flew back high. It was just erect due to the electric current, and was severely repaired by his own soul power. The two sides maintained a delicate balance. but the consumption of soul power doubled instantly. The killer's lizard-like blood-red eyes suddenly opened and disappeared in a flash. When he reappeared, he was already behind Garen, with the red ball in his hand pressing hard and silently against Garen's vest. The speed gap between the two widened again. Garen turned around and only had time to block the blade in front of him. Click. There was a sound of metal snapping. In a world that outsiders cannot see, the soul power ball in the killer's hand hits the blade. In an instant, the high temperature and low temperature change, and the current changes dozens of times at the same time. Even if the blade is made of special metal, it cannot withstand such rapid changes. The last one, palm, power impact. The long knife broke. Garen was hit in the chest with a slap. Boom. With a loud noise, the huge vortex collapsed completely, and the galleons flew out like a rocket. Directly smashed the entire vortex. But the speed of his inverted flight was actually not as fast as the slaughterous pursuit speed. Blocked by a large amount of sea water, it is constantly slowing down. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1220. The slaughterer appeared above Garen at high speed, digging into Garen's eyes with its sharp fingers. It's over. His expression was calm. His fingers were thrust in like a knife. The power and speed of this blow were enough to instantly pierce Garen's eyes and smash his brain at the same time. Snapped. Suddenly, Garen's arms tightly grasped his palm. His fingers were just a short distance from his face before he stopped dead in his tracks. The two of them were driven down by the huge impact and fell towards the extremely deep seabed. Blood slowly escaped from Garen's chest, the scarlet blood carrying a trace of pain. Garen's originally calm expression finally calmed down. How many years have you been without injuries? His murmuring voice penetrated the slaughterer's ears. In an instant, he suddenly felt a huge and terrifying threat coming. Without thinking twice, even though his average body quality has doubled now, he immediately retreated without hesitation. Snapped. But his arms were tightly trapped by Garen's arms. He looked down and saw a strange smile on Garen's face. There was a hint of bad emotion in my heart. Goodbye. Garen opened his mouth gently. In an instant, an extremely huge wave of soul power suddenly exploded from Garen's body, and the invisible soul power directly transformed into a huge sphere, wrapping the two of them in it. This is a pure collision of soul rings. Only physical contact and body conduction can lead to a head-on collision. Galen's two soul rings rushed towards the massacre's one soul ring. The three of them collided like three spheres, and a large amount of blood poured out from the eyes, ears, mouth, and nose of the killer, dyeing the surrounding sea water red. He stared at Garen in disbelief, completely unable to imagine that the other party actually had 2 rounds of soul rings. One of the rounds even had a hint of a mind reader left in it. In an instant, he finally understood why Garen would choose to fight him alone, and also choose to fight him on the high seas where no one was aware, with the temptation of joining the opponent whoever wins, all in order to hide it from the others. The purpose is to absorb his soul ring. By simply exploring soul rings, he has reached the pinnacle. Even if he is at the top of the first ring level of the ancient Yinduo Demon King, he is still only half a pound here. You have to fight to find out. But now that Garen seizes the opportunity to have physical intercourse and directly compete for soul rings, this is no longer an application of strength. It's like two people fighting. Once they get entangled and become entangled, the competition is not about fighting, punching, dodging and other skills, but a direct competition of physical strength and strength. This is the real, and a strange smile appeared on Garen's face. No, the massacre's eyes glowed red. No one can defeat me. No one. He lost his composure for the first time, roaring loudly, and his muscles twisted and undulated crazily. Mysterious symbols appeared on the surface of his body one after another, spreading quickly from the black hole in his chest to all parts of his body like countless black tadpoles. Is this? Garen immediately felt something was wrong and quickly let go of his arms to retreat. Above the clouds. Thunderfield. Fenjio, the massacre roared violently. A large number of high-voltage white electric current arcs suddenly appeared around the body, most of which were woven into a white grid, shrouding Galleon in it. Countless sea-water gathered into the hands of the killer, compressed and condensed, and turned into a huge white bow and arrow that was as long as 2 people and more than 1 meter thick. The huge ice crystal arrows glowed with white current and were aimed at Garen, who was retreating rapidly. Rumble. There was real thunder in the sky. Boom. A thunder column tens of meters thick fell out of thin air, shrunk in an instant, landed on the top of the slaughterer's bow and arrow, and turned into a ball of dazzling white light. You want to die together? Garen's scalp was numb. Even he couldn't bear this kind of power in this universe, let alone a massacre with a similar physique to him. Does he want to die? Perish together. The massacre's eyes became brighter and brighter. His voice seemed neither male nor female, strange and sharp, as if he had mutated and his voice had also changed. No, I will be reborn again, and you will completely fall into the bottomless abyss and become the nourishment of the entire world. Garen could already feel his body beginning to heat up rapidly, and white smoke gradually began to emit from his skin even in the water. But he is not a good person and has experienced countless life and death battles. The panic from before was instantly suppressed. If you don't work hard at this moment, you will definitely have no chance in the future. Now his soul power ball has sealed the slaughterer inside, and the slaughterer has triggered a thunder and lightning explosion. Although he cannot break through the soul power blockade, he can die with Garen before the soul power ball can take care of him. I want to see if you die first or me. Garen came up fiercely, turned his palms into knives, and suddenly drew a circle around him. The sword of the sky, the star of the 4 directions, his whole body's strength rushed to the 2-handed palm swords, and his whole body suddenly jumped up and flew downwards. All the huge soul power resonated at the same time. The countless sea water in front seemed to be cut open by a huge sharp blade, turning into a huge vacuum space, completely separating the 2 people. Garen's double swords brought out a huge amount of white sea water, transformed into the upper body of a peacock, made a shrill scream, and swooped down crazily, like a giant bird preying on prey. The slaughterer raised his bow, his soul power and thunder and lightning gathered together, his eyes shining red like the sun. The top of the arrow surged and absorbed the surrounding white water, like countless white lines converging on the tip of his arrow. The muscles all over his body were cracked and bleeding. One muscle fiber after another kept breaking, like an overwhelmed steel cable. Suddenly, he let go of his arm, and the huge white bow suddenly disappeared. The long bow collapsed and shattered, and the arrow disappeared directly from its place, rushing towards Garen with unimaginable terrifying speed and power. Boom! The entire blue sea area was shaken at first, and then a circular blue current pattern appeared on the entire sea surface. Just 2 seconds later, all the sea water in this current pattern covering hundreds of meters disappeared at the same time, and the sea surface suddenly appeared. A huge black hole abyss hundreds of meters wide. The strange thing is that the surrounding sea water does not pour into the black hole, but directly condenses into ice. A large amount of thunder and lightning and ice spread crazily on the water wall, half of it was ice and half of it was electricity. White and blue are at loggerheads, and the regime is divided. Boom! Countless white gas burst out from the center of the black hole, and the white mist steam turned into white air columns, shooting straight into the sky. A steady stream of air columns rushed up into the sky crazily, turning into patches of white clouds. The white clouds became thicker and gloomier as time passed. The originally clear sea below gradually darkened. Click! A bolt of lightning flashed across, illuminating the entire increasingly dark sea area. Wow! A heavy downpour fell. The white airflow column also gradually shrank and became elongated, and the original white color gradually turned into gray, directly transforming into a marine tornado. The huge tornado connected to the sky and the ground, like a gray and black funnel. The downpour that accompanies the hurricane does not fall vertically downwards, but forms chaotic sloping lines of rain. On a small desert island nearby. On the yellow beach, Garin and the massacre were lying on their backs limply at the junction of the beach and the sea. Both of them had white wounds all over their bodies. Garin's arms were broken, his sternum was collapsed, and one of his ears was torn off. The slaughterous deformation has returned to its original shape, with both legs broken and one hand missing. One eye is also blind. Both sides suffer losses, which is a result neither of them could have imagined. Lying on their backs on the beach, neither party had any extra energy. Ha ha ha, I still win. Garin forced a smile in front of him. He lost a lot of blood and suffered multiple serious injuries all over his body. In addition to the superficial injuries, he also suffered severe trauma to his internal organs and a concussion on his brain, which made his five senses somewhat blurred. Did you win? The slaughterer smiled with difficulty, or do you think you won? All your soul power will eventually be mine. Garin panted heavily and began to turn over, slowly crawling towards the direction of the massacre. He couldn't remember how long it had been since he had been injured like this. But the more this happens, it also proves that the massacre's soul ring is of high quality, far exceeding the other three cornerstones. After all, the slaughterer physical fitness was only a temporary improvement. It was not that Garin was originally so strong, but it was still far behind. So now he was basically unable to move and could only watch Garin slowly move towards him. Looking at Garin's slowly moving body, the red light in his eyes dimmed slightly, and the fluorescence gradually disappeared, returning to the appearance of a normal person. After the red light dissipated, there was a trace of doubt and confusion in the eyes of the slaughterer. I seem to remember something. Something I had forgotten. He muttered blankly. Garin moved step by step, and the remaining distance between the two was the distance of death. The slaughterer strangely lost any sense of fear. After he lost the red light in his eyes, he forgot his fear, and began to recall his memories with increasing confusion. I seem to have forgotten something very important. Very important. His mind went blank, but scenes of familiar yet unfamiliar memories were slowly emerging. Finally, Garin moved in front of him, slowly stretched out his hand and pressed it to his forehead. It's over, he sighed. Yes. It's over, the massacre replied inexplicably. His eyes suddenly became extremely clear, without any trace of red light. I remember now. Unconsciously, his pupils slowly became foggy. Many years ago, I wasn't like this. Garin looked at his clear eyes and was slightly startled. He seemed to understand something. The massacre is not a massacre at all, he is simply being controlled. The red light before was the source of his control, and it was only when he was about to die that he was freed and restored to his true self. No wonder he felt that his soul power had two different fluctuations during the previous duel. Garin had always felt that something was wrong with the slaughterer. There is no future life, and there is no attachment. The killer's eyes were extremely peaceful. It was as if he didn't even see the hand hanging above him. Garin was silent for a moment. His hand suddenly reached down to grab it. Puff. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1221. Garin looked at Guanglu and slowly picked up the tea and took a sip. The faint fragrance of tea slowly floats in the living room. It seems that you are deliberately avoiding Yuruwa and not meeting him. Guanglu nodded. You are right. I am indeed avoiding him on purpose. To be precise, I am avoiding them. A lot of information has also been collected in the Garan energy mark. After hearing this, I also had some guesses in my mind. But everything still needs to be revealed by the light path. He looked at the lady sitting opposite. Guanglu is a very graceful woman with fair skin. She looks more like a slightly plump rich lady than a powerful bounty hunter mercenary. I don't know if you have heard of the names Hyjin Qin, she said in a low voice. Golden's Hyken, Garen recalled all the information in his memory. I've never heard of it, he shook his head. This was a completely unfamiliar name. You must be familiar with her other name, Guanglu smiled and said, Yuriji. Garen frowned. What do you mean? What does it matter if Yuriji has another name? Of course it doesn't matter, Guanglu said immediately, but if this name is also the commander-in-chief of the White Crab Army, would you still say it doesn't matter? Commander-in-chief of the White Crab Force? Are you kidding me? Garen suddenly laughed. He also knew Yuriji, a delicate and frail little girl, and had also trained under him. He knew that she was his disciple along with Uriwa. However, because Uriwa's talent was too powerful, Garen generally ignored it. It was not very eye-catching, but now Guanglu came and suddenly told him that such a little girl was actually the commander-in-chief of a top international mercenary group like White Crab. It's as ridiculous as if someone suddenly came to tell you that the old man next door is the head of a certain country. I'm starting to wonder if you're really Guanglu. What do you use to prove your identity? Garen leaned back on his seat and said casually. The evidence is very simple, Guanglu clapped his hands, as if he had expected this. Soon the woman who drove Garen before came up again and placed a box in front of Garen. Please look. The woman stepped back and stretched out her hand slightly, signaling Garen to open the box and check it out. Here are photos of me and my brother and sister Yuriva, all photos from when I was 15, as well as all my identity documents, and the most important thing, my professional certificate. As a mercenary and bounty hunter, I have my own security code in the security departments of many major countries, and you can definitely find my relevant information through connections. Garen opened the box and looked through it casually. I can understand that you don't need to lie to me, but I still find it ridiculous that Yurija is the commander-in-chief of White Crab. He recalled Yurija's performance, which was quite satisfactory and unremarkable. It can't even be said to be inconspicuous, but has no sense of existence. Suddenly he felt something was wrong. He had always been a very vigilant person, but he still didn't have a solid and deep impression on a person who spent time with him every day and taught him skills. Garen suddenly felt something was wrong. Guanglu, who had been noticing his expression, smiled slightly. It seems that you also noticed the problem. Garen frowned and retrieved all the memories about Yuliji and checked carefully, only to find that no matter how he checked, Yuliji's information seemed to be shrouded in a layer of fog, making it blurry and unclear. His brows spread. Interesting. Guanglu smiled and took out a mobile phone. The screen on it was on, and there were pictures of the girl's life. Look at this. Garen took it and saw a picture of a girl who looked a lot like Yurija slowly playing on the screen of his phone. This is a life photo of a girl named Zijinkan more than 70 years ago. I extracted it from the National Security Database. You can find the database for verification at any time, Guanglu said seriously. Yulija, Zijinqin is actually the same person. Then how do you explain that she would send the White Crab Army to attack us? Garen asked, putting down his phone. Zijinkan is a madman, Guanglu smiled bitterly. She stabbed my legs and my eyes blind, do you believe it? Garen raised his eyebrows. What is going on? Please tell me carefully. He probably knew the original plot, but he had never discovered that there was such a deep inside story hidden in the mainland. Guanglu nodded. He slowly picked up the tea and took a sip. This starts from more than 80 years ago. International Center for Disease Control. In the White Hall, a large number of medical staff were shuttled back and forth, and emergency stretchers were constantly being sent to different research rooms. Some people who took samples and took various data reports were in a hurry, constantly shuttling between major departments. How is the situation now, inside the Central Information Collection Center? Several people in white uniforms are gathering together to discuss the emergency epidemic treatment plan. It's not optimistic. The spread of this virus has expanded 15 times in just one night. It can be preliminarily determined to be airborne infection, said a white-haired old man nervously. It feels like we are back to the Carpo virus incident again, another old professor said with emotion. Immediately activate the highest red alert, notify the Ministry of Health of each country, and control the spread of Uri's Kiss virus as soon as possible. Announce the specific characteristics. What about the isolation method? And the disinfection measures, another person asked urgently. High temperature disinfection, the air isolation zone must not be less than 1 kilometer, the old professor quickly replied. This virus is simply terrible. The mortality rate has actually reached over 99%. Beep. Suddenly, a piercing alarm sounded throughout the gathering place, and a projection screen instantly appeared in front of several old professors on their left. That's a world map. The map was originally a patch of blue, but now on the 3 major continents, a bit of red is rapidly spreading and growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. This is. Several people were frightened by the sudden change. Real-time playback of the map shows that the red virus-infected areas are spreading far faster than anyone imagined. In less than 20 hours, the whole world will be completely infected, someone panicked. Is the end of humanity coming? The old professor's voice began to tremble. In a bustling metropolis, crowds of people are bustling and flowing with each other on the pedestrian street. Boom. A little girl holding a doll suddenly dropped the Coke bottle in her hand to the ground. Yang Yang? What's wrong? Her mother seemed to feel that something was wrong with the girl. She lowered her head and asked with a frown. Mom, my head hurts so much. The little girl raised her head, her face pale and almost wrinkled. Did you catch a cold? The mother knelt down and touched her daughter's forehead. But a terrifying scene occurred. The little girl's eyes suddenly slowly filled with scarlet blood, and the blood drew 2 lines of blood and dripped down her cheek. Mother was stunned. Just a moment later. Ah! Screams erupted almost in unison throughout the city. There are men and women, old and young. The whole crowd was in chaos, and a large number of people covered their eyes, but blood flowed down their cheeks and dripped on the ground. Countless viruses in the air continue to multiply at a high speed, drifting farther and farther along the air. Humans, animals, and even plants have become the targets of their infection and parasitism. Click. The photo is frozen. That's right, here's another one. A newlywed couple was taking wedding photos standing on the top of a skyscraper. The cameraman smiled and gestured for the 2 of them to get closer. Let's have a passionate kiss, the photographer shouted. The groom smiled and gently embraced the bride, closed his eyes and was about to kiss her. Karen, he did not touch his girlfriend's soft and sexy lips, but instead heard her somewhat urgent and frightened voice. Karen, your eyes are bleeding. What? The groom felt his cheeks were wet and stretched out his hand to wipe it. The blood on his hand stung his eyes. What's going on? Send to the hospital immediately, immediately. Quick, 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 the photographer was the first to react. Uri's Kiss. So far, 50% of the areas in the red country have been infected, and according to the report of the World Center for Disease Control, this virus must be controlled immediately, otherwise if it is allowed to spread, the infection may spread around the world within 20 hours. The International Federation held an emergency remote video conference. Time is urgent. I have summoned a special force and transformed it into a special epidemic prevention force to carry out isolation and other work arrangements. The president of the Red Country looked grim. All factories have stopped production and made every effort to make concessions to all production needs of the epidemic, the president of Sri Lanka said sternly. Block all relevant entry and exit ports, Temporarily isolate the infected areas in the Red Country, and remind all citizens to wear emergency gas masks. The Black Federation president proposed an effective plan. The specific content of the plan has been passed on to both of you. Please implement it immediately after reading it. We don't have much time. Virus vaccines are working hard to conquer it. Isn't there even a way to delay the disease? No, my expert team told me that this virus mainly destroys the brain nerves of the human body. Because it is too fast and too strong, the immune system has no time to respond. It is more like a virus than a virus. It is a kind of war weapon, a biological and chemical weapon designed to kill people, the president of the Red Country said in a low voice. I have information from intelligence channels. The source of this Yuri's Kiss seems to be developed by an organization called White Crab Island. Experts told me that a special wave is continuously spreading from that place, which can quickly spread throughout the planet with the help of the planet's geomagnetism. The entire planet is also constantly providing the most suitable environment and growth energy for viruses like Yuri's Kiss. Like wireless charging, the Black Federation president's face darkened. Yes. Call the elite troops immediately. Within 3 hours, I want to see White Crab Island completely sunk, the president of Sri Lanka said coldly. Why not just blow it up? We need its information to treat people who are already infected. Then let's settle it. Agree. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1222. Are you saying that Zhijinkan and Uriwo have lived for more than 80 years? It's just that due to an accident, Uriwo lost his memory, and Zhijinkan personally knitted the dream as a dreamer for her brother. A dream of a beautiful life with relatives, family, and friends. Galen felt a little incredible. Guanglu sat calmly on his seat and drank tea. That's about it? You understand exactly? Garen frowned slightly. If you say it this way, a lot of things can be said to be acceptable. A trace of sadness flashed in Guanglu's eyes. As you understand. The dreamer's Zhijinkan, Urija, who loves her brother, was born in pain and was transformed by her father as a guinea pig, killing all her dear playmates and her favorite pet. Able to withstand endless transformations, she was regarded as a monster by her mother, beaten, abused, and disfigured. As one of the most special individuals among the four cornerstones, she possesses an immortal body. She cannot be killed at all, and she cannot after dying, she can only live in pain, and the only warmth she has is her brother Uriva. Guanglu narrated quietly. Uriva is a genius. Any skill he has learned can be mastered quickly like a veteran who has been immersed in it for many years. He is passionate and advocates justice. After discovering that his sister was being continuously abused as an experimental subject, he became more and more. He tried to stop her several times, but to no avail, and was severely beaten. Finally, she ran away angrily and tried to find outside help to rescue her sister, but was accidentally killed by her father. As a result, Zhijinkan's temperament changed drastically. She severely injured and killed her father, controlled a large number of people, and founded Bijinkan. Crab. Guanglu finished all the sources in one breath. That's where the white crab originally came from. A fire in the Red Country more than 80 years ago destroyed a huge biopharmaceutical base with an investment of tens of millions. It happened to be exactly the same as the starting point of the incident you mentioned. Galen also found relevant information. You are right. It was that fire, but it was just to cover up the destruction of all criminal research, Guanglu said deeply. What about their mother? Garen asked. I don't know, maybe he died, maybe he escaped. But that's not important anymore. Guanglu shook his head. The most important thing now is that Zhijinkan is crazy. Crazy? Garen felt a bad premonition. What's the meaning? Guanglu closed his eyes slightly and breathed deeply. The truth decades ago, the tragic fate, and the end of the experimental subjects, all these have brought immense pain to Zhijinkan. Everything in the outside world has brought her nothing but pain and despair. She can survive until now. It's crazy. I feel a little surprised. Garen said nothing and continued to listen to her. The most powerful person in the world is actually not the Slayer, but the dreamer who controls the Slayer. That is Haijinkan. Guanglu paused, breathing slightly as if he was recalling some bad memory. She modified my memory for decades. Of course, I'm pretty good compared to this. The strongest killer Situ Ci, who had his memory modified at the same time as me, woke up early because he was too determined and was killed by Haijinkan on the way. At that time, I felt something was wrong. Sitosi? Is he the man pretending to be the father of the Yureva brothers and sisters? Garen asked. Yes, Guanglu nodded, that's him. I didn't know him at all. I originally had my own lover and my own family. But because of Haijinkan, she thought we were very similar to their parents, so everything changed. She showed a tragic smile. Everything is ruined, destroyed. If everything you said is true, Garen said calmly, then what is your purpose of inviting me here this time and telling me the truth? As expected of the rumored sword master, your words are as clear and crisp as your sword. Guanglu gave a slight compliment. I just want to make a request, a small request. Presumably, there are already elite troops organizing experts to go to White Crab Island, right? She said somewhat mysteriously. What's the meaning? Just as Garen asked, a series of frantic sounds suddenly started ringing in the contact device, which were either call requests or a large number of text messages. He quickly took it out and looked at it, quickly scrolled through a large number of text messages, and did not answer the phone. His expression suddenly changed a little. Yuri's kiss. Haijinkan, in the text message, there were 9-tailed foxes, Yeshui, Poseidon whom he had never met before, and his original subordinate, Kong Xingxiu, etc. Everything was related. All the people sent messages. The most conspicuous among them is Uriwa. He sent almost all the causes and consequences in the text message. At the end of the day, he still regarded Garen as his teacher. If this is the end of the world, then maybe I will become the final protagonist. The content of Uriwa's last text message came with a big smiley face. This bastard, Garen got a little angry. Haijinkan's identity has been proven beyond doubt, White Crab Island, Yuri's kiss virus. If the source is not solved and a cure is found within 20 hours, I am afraid that the entire planet will turn into a dead zone. Although Garen didn't care about the life and death of other people on the entire planet, he still had Yureva Kongzin and other friends he cared about slightly. It was not in line with his style to just sit back and do nothing. It will really cause trouble for people. Garen was speechless and stood up. It feels like watching a movie, or a science fiction movie with big scenes. I want to ask you one last time, are you sure everything you said is true? He looked at the light path seriously. With his close-range sensing ability, he could observe all the physiological activity indexes of the light path. Not to mention lying, even when he wanted to go to the toilet, when he finished digesting food, when he burped, these small details can be grasped clearly. Garen's eyes slightly exuded strong pressure. This is used to confirm for the last time whether the information about the light path is true. I dare to guarantee it with my life and glory. Guanglu replied affirmatively. About Yuri's kiss, tell me your request. Garen already felt that time was running out. He didn't want such a beautiful world and planet to turn into a dead zone all of a sudden. That would be really boring, and without people there would be no life. People produce products for eating, drinking, and having fun, and it is also unknown whether a time traveler can be immune to this virus. He has already planned to go to White Crab Island in person to check whether the situation is true. My request. Guanglu paused for a moment, then she raised her head, revealing her smooth forehead. Please kill Haijinkan. This is my only wish and prayer. Garen frowned slightly. He saw Guanglu gently placing his forehead on the table with a pious and determined expression. You don't need to tell me this. If she is really such a bastard as you say and has deceived everything, I will kill her. He turned and walked outside. When he was about to reach the door, the sound of the light path came again. Zhijinkin has gone completely crazy. With a click, Garin turned the doorknob and walked out slowly, his figure instantly disappearing into the night outside like the wind. The previous text message from Poseidon was still replaying in his mind. Zhijinkin wants to destroy all mankind and destroy all life, except for her and her brother Yurova. I request you in the name of the Lighthouse Alliance and hope to get your assistance. She wanted to be the original Eve and create a new world. She found that everything was out of control, so she simply turned the table over. This time it's all up to you. The strongest swordsman Garin, you now represent all mankind to save the world. By the way, I am also infected, Kong Xingxiu and Liwat are also infected. If you can't succeed, then. Yeshui's pretending to be relaxed tone was filled with uncontrollable panic. Also, we cannot leave this universe until the infection can be eliminated. The lighthouse issued an order to activate the epidemic defense and completely blocked our area. We can only leave after the epidemic is eliminated. Give me one more reason, Garin murmured. He never thought that he would lose. Whether it was the slaughterer or the Zhijinkin, they were just small steps he encountered accidentally in this world. A huge silver-white tornado-shaped mountain stands far away on a blue sea. The sea water washed away this huge tornado mountain, which was thousands of meters thick, from the side again and again. Under the night sea, the moonlight spread to the sea surface, reflecting the large number of ships and warships densely surrounded by the surrounding waters. The combat helicopters and drones taking off from the aircraft carrier in the distance were densely rotating around the tornado like a swarm of bees, laying down streaks of pure white and translucent white light pillars. The fleet of the Red Nation, the fleet of Slan, and the aircraft carrier group of the Black Federation as far away as possible. Yurova was squatting half-crouched on the bow of a white warship. Different from the bustling sailors on the deck far behind him, he was holding a cigarette, and the red cigarette butt shone slightly in the darkness. Hai Feng blew his windbreaker and collar. With the inexplicable increase in strength, he also regained his former memories. Qin looked at the huge tornado mountain thousands of meters high in the distance, and his memory seemed to have returned to the time decades ago. Who is always at the window looking at the world in the distance? That hazy figure, from childhood to adulthood, emerged from the depths of his memory scene by scene. I once said that I would give you a surprise and a miracle, Yurova murmured in a low voice, forgive me for not being able to do it. He didn't blame Qin for his 80-year memory confusion. If there was anyone in the world who could truly understand her, maybe he was the only one left. Pain, despair, darkness, endless haze. She can't see, hear, or smell, and can only rely on other people's bodies to experience the world. Immortality is wealth to others, but to her it is just an abyss. Yurova stood up, and a silvery white light flashed in his hand, which was a short and sharp silver dagger. Brother, are you here too? A familiar voice suddenly broke into his ears, as if it was ringing directly in his mind. Qin, Yurova was startled. Is that you? Qin. The night gradually became brighter, and a bright golden color gradually lit up on the horizon behind Tornado Mountain. The sun slowly emerges from below the sea level, slowly releasing endless huge light and heat. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1223. Brother, are you here to save me? Qin is so happy. The voice was soft and warm, as if it penetrated directly from the air. Yurova was silent for a moment, somewhat speechless. Snapped. A big hand slapped him hard on the back of the shoulder. What's wrong? Standing here alone in a daze? The captain of the ship was also one of the infected people, or in other words, everyone who came here came with the determination to die. They were all Yuri's Kiss patients who were selected and found to be infected. If this mission cannot be completed, then they will also die. So there is no need to worry about anything like boosting morale, because everyone understands that if you don't fight, you will die. The captain is a northerner, tall and strong, with a cheerful and outgoing personality, and he gets along well with Yuriva, who is traveling on the boat. No, it's nothing. Yuriwa smiled, feeling a little depressed. Thinking of Urijaor's Hijinkins past, there was always an indescribable blockage in his heart. Don't worry. There are a large number of experts here this time. No matter how powerful she is, all the elites from the 3 major countries are here. There will definitely be no mistakes, the captain was very confident. Maybe Yuriva forced a smile. The Black Federation's strongest Thunder King has also taken action. The Red Country's Baron Bone Prince, as well as our Vulture number 1, plus their respective elite guard masters, it is absolutely easy to deal with a white crab. If it were not for the rush of time, I estimate that it would be simpler to sink a few long-range missiles directly, the captain said nonchalantly. Yuriwa responded with a smile from the side. But my sister's voice just now kept coming back to my mind. Look. Someone is on the island. Suddenly the captain pointed to the sea in the distance. Yuriva followed his line of sight and saw a small group of people wearing invisibility suits sneaking up towards White Crab Island. This invisibility suit is not true invisibility, but an optical camouflage suit that changes color automatically. The luster color is constantly transformed as the environment moves, allowing the human body to blend into the environment. From a distance, a small group of people could barely see anyone moving. Those are the people from the Special Operations Department of the Black Federation. They should have gone to test the water first. The radio notification has been sent for more than 10 minutes, but there is no reply. Couldn't these White Crab army have almost escaped? A few more people came up behind the captain and sneered loudly. Damn it, it made us come all the way here to locate it specifically. What kind of virus is this, really so powerful? What do you think? Yuriva, is it really your sister who created this thing? Some people didn't believe it. Yuriva could only remain silent and apologize with a wry smile. Not only one of their ships, but many other fleets were waiting to hear the news that a small group of elite masters had entered the island. There was still contact at first, but later, suddenly there were several screams on the radio, and everything became quiet. Still resisting. On another black ship, there was a tall man in a black military uniform with thick hair and an ugly face. As the supreme commander of the Black Federation's operation, the masters sent out actually lost more than 10 people, but he couldn't even get an accurate shot. The information was not sent back. The fleet is ready, indiscriminate bombing for 10 minutes, he waved his hand, and the adjutant behind him quickly began to convey the instructions. Bang! Bang 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 bang! The continuous loud sound of shelling suddenly roared rhythmically. The shells landed on the tornado-shaped silver-white mountain, blasting holes of different sizes on its surface. Smoke and dust filled the air, and gravels were scattered. Coming down, high sand waves splashed everywhere around the White Crab Island, and the sea surface shook slightly. More than 10 Black Federation warships fired a salvo and bombed the aircraft, and a large number of incendiary bombs were dropped. The area around White Crab Island quickly then he completely fell into the sea of fire. Thunder King, what are you doing? We need the information inside. Who asked you to directly order indiscriminate bombing and use incendiary bombs? Dissatisfied responses came from the other 3 forces in the wireless communication. However, the Black Federation ignored them at all and continued bombing. Ignore them. Continue. Thunder King is arrogant and never listens to other people's opinions. He thinks that his strength is far superior to others. Even if his strategy is wrong, he can correct it with his own strength. The pariah of the Black Federation, On another Red Nation fleet, a handsome man in a red coat flashed a sinister look in his eyes. Without understanding the general situation and disregarding the overall situation, sooner or later I will attack the federal headquarters. The man held a scarlet broad-blade sword in one hand. The hilt was engraved with some delicate and complex patterns, which looked quite extraordinary. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince will definitely be able to revitalize the domestic situation and re-establish the true centralization of monarchy. A man behind him, shrouded in black robes, complimented sharply. Go down and get ready to land on the island. Time is running out. The prince glanced coldly at the Black Federation fleet. If we can get such virus information and put it into the Black Federation, I think my father will be very happy to see that nice scene. What if the Black Federation people still don't stop the bombardment? Then kill them first. The man in black robe suddenly laughed sharply. The three forces were each the main body, and the Black Federation fleet had to stop bombarding. Vulture 1 led several Vulture masters on foot and entered the island from the right side. As for the Prince of the Red Kingdom, they entered the island from the left alone. For the Black Federation, the King of Thunder personally led two big robot-like guys wearing silver and white armor, and walked onto the island from the front with heavy steps. After the three forces arrived on the island as the main body, they were quickly followed by small groups of searching soldiers in order to quickly grasp the situation on the entire island. Urawa also mixed in with the second wave of teams arriving on the island, quickly moving from the outside towards the inside. He considers himself to be pretty good, but he hasn't reached the top level yet. He will let the strongest masters of the three major forces test the waters first. And he still couldn't believe that Zijinkin was the creator of all the scams, and there was still a trace of luck left deep in his heart. On the surface of the sea, the sun just cast a hint of gold, reflecting a large golden light on the sea surface on the horizon. A clear white line flew straight into the distance. It was a large and extremely fast ship. It seemed to be a military ship. There was a half mark on the side that had not been completely covered by spray paint. It seemed that the cover-up procedure had not been carried out. After that, he was hurriedly pulled on the road. Garin stood on the bow of the ship and looked at the endless sea in the distance. How long until we arrive? He asked with a frown. It was night in that place before, but it was almost dawn here. There's still an hour left. We should be able to catch up. Don't worry, the person driving the boat is a nine-tailed fox. She and Kong Xingxiu came with Garin. She and Urava cooperated with Garin before. A ship with the fastest speed, ensuring that galleons can board the ship as soon as they fly over. Don't waste any time. Although the nine-tailed fox was operating the ship, his face was very pale, with almost no blood. There was still a trace of blood in the corners of his eyes, which was the blood that had just flowed out and had not been completely wiped off. Blood flows from the corners of both eyes, which is the most striking feature of those infected with the Uri's Kiss virus. The rooms where they operate the ship are all isolated, and Garin cannot enter without violent destruction, in order to prevent Garin from being infected. Although it is just a delay, no matter how well we prepare for this airborne virus, it is impossible to completely isolate it, but it can delay it for a while. There were also some infected crew members on the ship, and they all joined in with the determination to die. Garin raised the newly acquired longsword of machine technology. The sword was covered with various fine mechanical gears. It looked like a layer of metal wrapping the complex components inside. It was very delicate, but it gave people an unsteady feeling. It seems that it can be broken with just a slight hit. Is this knife really strong and tough? Garin asked casually. Through the pager, the nine-tailed fox explained helplessly. This is the technology of a place I have experienced before. I guarantee you that it is definitely far ahead of the technology of this era. Using ordinary materials and substances to make hardness and indicators that far exceed the original materials is the characteristic of that place. Even if you have the power of Poseidon, this sword is enough. I hope so, Garin said non-committally. White Crab Island. In the center, the entire island is surrounded by empty buildings and houses. Some are tall towers, some are circular research rooms, some are nourished by technology incubators, and there are some public leisure facilities. It seems that if there are not various with all kinds of signage and text nourishment, this place is less like a biochemical research base and more like an unknown-style amusement park. Yurova followed this team all the way and didn't find any white crab soldiers blocking them. After their scattered team of more than 10 people encountered several traps one after another, they were able to escape them without any danger. Hey, Team 2 successfully passed the third checkpoint and reached the predetermined location. Please give us the next step of instructions, the captain kept calling with the walkie-talkie. However, the signal displayed on the screen of the walkie-talkie was not connected. It was obvious that there was some kind of large-scale shielding facility here. Damn it! I can't hear anything. He slapped the walkie-talkie hard several times, but it still had no effect, so he had to put it away. Your Excellency Yurova, what do you think we should do now? He looked at Yurova, who had the most say in the team. This time, the captain delegated the command to Yurova alone. After losing the top command, at that time, everything was focused on his goals. Can you find other search teams that went to the island together? Yurova also felt that something was wrong. There were at least 800 people on the island, if not 1,000. It was impossible not to meet any of them. After all, this White Crab Island, the area is only so large, so even if there are buildings blocking the view, you won't be able to hear even a single sound. Now that we are all here, there is no point in retreating, Yurova said directly. Keep moving forward. Okay, the captain is also a decisive person. Now that he has arrived at this place, he has put his own life and death in his mind. The group of people continued to advance among the white buildings, and the surroundings were quiet. They did not hear any sound from other teams, even if it was just gunshots. Very strange. They continued to advance for about a few kilometers, heading towards Tornado Mountain, and soon a very tall white icicle appeared in front of them, and a person seemed to be frozen inside the icicle. The group already felt something was wrong. This island shouldn't be so big. The length and width are only a few thousand meters. How could it be possible that we have walked for so long and still not reached Tornado Mountain? Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1224. Yurova raised his hand to signal everyone to stop. Looking at the icicle from a distance, I suddenly realized that it seemed to be just an illusion, and the icicle quickly disappeared. Gradually, a layer of faint white fog began to cover the entire island, and he intuitively felt that something was wrong with this layer of fog. Why can't I see anything? A soldier suddenly said. Me too. Captain. Axe, someone shouted. Yurova turned around and was about to check what was going on, but found that all the voices behind him suddenly disappeared. The whole white mist was empty, there was nothing, no team, no soldiers, and the voices just now seemed to be just hallucinations. We have gathered. A familiar voice came from in front of him. Parrot. Yurova saw the parrot again. She was wearing a white dress and slowly walked out of the white mist. This is an illusionary white mist that can confuse people's five senses and create random hallucinations, the parrot said calmly. Come on, they have already started fighting. Follow me. Yurova watched her slowly turn around and walk towards the depths of the white mist. He hesitated for a moment and immediately followed her. In this case, all the soldiers around him disappeared at once. They either went far away or were definitely separated. When the radio was also unavailable, it might not be a bad idea to follow a parrot that had no ill intentions towards you. He finally tried waving his hands around and calling his teammates' names several times, but there was no response. So I could only follow the parrot in front of me and move forward. Underground White Crab Central Stone Pillar. In front of the huge silver white metal funnel, a petite girl sat quietly on the big white bed, staring blankly into the distance. Her eyes had no pupils, as if she was looking at something, but more like she was absent-minded. Ha ha ha. It seems that I was the first to find this place. The Thunder King was wearing a blue metal tight-fitting combat uniform, holding a black metal rod in his hand, and a blue electric light flashed from the top of the rod from time to time. He strode out of a cave entrance with his two assistants and adjutants. His eyes were immediately fixed on the petite naked girl sitting on the big bed. Although it was blocked by the white quilt, he could still tell that the person was Urija, also known as Hijinkin, who was circulated on the wanted poster. This has been evaluated as one of the four most dangerous cornerstones in history and possesses absolute immortality. This has been heard during the sharing of intelligence. This is one of the reasons why the Thunder King is so active and rushes over immediately even if he is not infected. Immortal. What a wonderful word. The moment he heard this word, he decided to make the method of immortality his greatest wish. Mind reader, the Thunder King pressed a button on the right side of his thigh. Click. Hiss. Suddenly, pieces of metallic black modules automatically opened up behind him, like building blocks of pitch-black squares. More and more black squares poured out of the Thunder King's back. The surface of these squares had a metallic luster, but they actually appeared. When exposed to air, it rapidly expands and becomes larger. In less than a few seconds, his body was covered with a thick layer of black squares. These large numbers of squares formed a black robot that was 3 times larger than his original size. There are densely packed honeycomb-shaped cannonball launch ports on his chest and shoulders. The worst thing is that the key part between the Thunder King's legs is actually embedded with a blue gem. The gem is slightly fluorescent and seems to be able to emit powerful laser beams at any time. Hey! It seems that I caught the opportunity first. The Thunder King was now more than 4 meters tall. He stepped out in one step, and the ground shook slightly. The black metal armor all over his body swayed like waves. They rubbed violently against each other, and large blue arcs appeared on the entire body surface. Die! He suddenly stepped on the ground, and the rocket thrusters mounted on his back by the 2 adjutants behind him erupted directly. In the blazing yellow flames, the Thunder King waved his fist with blue electric light and struck hard. He punched the little girl on the big bed. Each of these modules of mine can withstand heavy artillery bombardment for at least 10 minutes. With so many modules combined, I am now invincible. The Thunder King laughed wildly and punched the little girl on the side of the head. Puff! A stream of plasma splashed directly onto his face outside the armor. The Thunder King's expression changed instead. The one he hit was not the little girl Zijinkin at all. But it was an adjutant subordinate behind him. Sir, the adjutant opened his eyes wide, his face full of disbelief, and he was punched directly in the middle of his chest. He fell to the ground with a bang. Not only him, but another adjutant was also lying on the ground, dead or alive, with obvious traces of being scorched by electric current on his body. This is hallucination. Thunder King's face darkened. Only then did he realize that he had even attacked in the wrong direction. He turned around and saw that Hijinkin was still behind him, still maintaining his original sluggish and absent-minded look. You guy! A surge of incomparable anger surged from the depths of his heart. One of these 2 lieutenants is his nephew. Tisk, 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 King Thunder, he accidentally killed his own nephew. News like this is really rare. A handsome pale man walked out from another place, with a man in black robe behind him who couldn't see clearly. Face of a short man. Unlike the King of Thunder and others who arrived here smoothly, these 2 people were covered in blood. It was obvious that they had gone through quite a lot of fighting to get here. Prince of the Red Kingdom, Thunder King turned his head with a stern expression. If you say one more thing, I will kill you. Oh, I'm so scared. The prince pretended to laugh. Honorable Thunder King, you didn't even understand the basic abilities of a mind reader, so you brought in 2 subordinates who couldn't resist the heart ring. I really don't know if you are reckless and confident or arrogant. Boom. The Thunder King punched with his right arm and punched out in the air. The huge twisted air wave directly made a clear and concave punch mark on the wall on the side of the prince's head. A large amount of broken earth and gravel fell down, and the entire cave shook violently, almost as if it was about to collapse. "It's really rough," the man in black robes behind the prince sneered, "but does the Thunder King think that the Mind Reader, the most powerful existence among the four cornerstones, will be so easy to deal with? He still has the strength to punch his allies. The most important thing now is to deal with the Mind Readers first." Vulture number 1 and others came out of another cave. He was holding a dark green gem-like device in his hand, which was constantly emitting circles of light green light, to protect the dozen or so people behind him. Vulture number 1 was wearing a large windbreaker and a military cap, with a cold and deep face. His strength is actually inferior to that of the Crown Prince of the Red Kingdom and the King of Thunder. Originally, the Slan Kingdom was the weakest in terms of personal strength. With Garen, he became the strongest person on par with the Black Federation, but now the Sword Master defected and left, and the Slan Kingdom, which had lost its supreme military force, once again regained its original weak position. The trash of the Slan Kingdom, the Thunder King, was not an ordinary bitch, and he attracted hatred whenever he opened his mouth. A flash of anger flashed in Vulture 1's eyes. But he still couldn't bear to argue with him, but the others behind him couldn't help it, and there was a burst of cynicism when they opened their mouths. The Thunder King didn't bother to reply at all. He raised his fist and also hit this side. The sound suddenly stopped. With a roar, there was also a fist mark half a meter deep on the ground beside everyone in Vulture number 1. More and more people came soon, but it seemed that there were far fewer people than those who set out. Gradually, everyone formed a circle around the Zhijinkan and the big bed in the center. After various inspections, dangers such as bombs or various traps were ruled out. The funnel-shaped silver-white metal directly attracts more attention from everyone. Suddenly, on the metal surface, in the empty space above the big bed, a soft silver-white tentacle slowly extended out. As if the tentacle was not metal, it condensed into a liquid and formed a human lip. "Welcome to my paradise," a strange overlapping voice slowly sounded. It was as if an old man and a crisp girl spoke at the same time. "Hand over the information, Mind Reader." "You have no chance." Vulture number 1 spoke confidently on the surface, but there was a hint of vigilance deep in his eyes, ready to retreat and escape at any time. "Let's play a game first." The voice ignored him at all. This made Vulture 1 a little embarrassed, but no one paid attention to his embarrassment at this time. Everyone's attention fell on Zhijin on the big bed. This was the first time everyone saw her move after entering the cave. Zhijinkan gently raised her left hand and opened her petite white palm. She opened her lips and began to speak softly, but no sound came out. Suddenly, the crowd let out a suppressed swallowing sound. I saw that the entire palm of Zhijinkan's left hand actually melted like a candle, turning into drops of wax and falling on the ground beside the bed. The strange thing is that each drop of wax gradually expands and becomes larger. "Kill her now," someone yelled. "She must be planning something. Shoot." Bang 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 bang. Someone actually brought a heavy machine cannon in. Amidst the roar, the huge machine cannon fired directly at Zhijinkan. But it was useless. A large number of bullets were blocked in a layer of air in front of Zhijinkan, and fell to the ground with clanging sounds. "Call." A circle of red flames surrounded her bed and burned on the ground. The flame was only half a meter high and nothing spontaneously ignited. "An unclean world, a sinful world," the strange voice sounded again. Zhijinkan's face in the flames was expressionless, but it gave people a strange feeling that she was smiling. "Do it," Thunder King yelled. Feeling something was wrong, he bumped his fists against each other and smashed down hard. Crack! A large amount of blue-purple current spread from the ground towards Zhijinkan. Directly fan out to cover the entire silver-white funnel metal. The Red Prince raised the red rune sword upside down, turned into a leap with a few steps, turned over, and drew the sword. Clang. Ring of annihilation, the sword blade in the prince's hand turned into a red ring, and faint black lines appeared around the high-speed rotation. I don't know what formed it. Vulture number 1 took out a pistol with a thick barrel, the muzzle lit up with a faint white light, and solemnly aimed at Zhijin. At this moment, the wax liquid dripping from Zhijin grew rapidly and taller, forming a slightly black humanoid monster with a triangular head. The monster held 2 knives and its body was densely covered with hard metal scales. Every drop of wax liquid turned into a monster, and immediately at least dozens or hundreds of monsters rushed towards the people around them.